Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by the American Job Center, Santa Barbara Counties, as a matter of fact. We're going to be going over today conflict resolution in the workplace and how important it is of what you do, how do you handle conflict resolution, and this course is designed to help you through the tough times. And there are a lot of tough times when you're working. So we're going to go through about who's the boss, who's the manager, and why does this matter about who is the boss and why it matters. Learn how to have a difficult conversation with your boss and or your manager. Having difficult conversations is difficult. That's why they're called difficult conversations. But there are ways to have them and have them be wonderful outcomes. But you've got to learn how to say the right things and do the right things at the same time. Learn how to have difficult conversations with your coworkers. That's a big deal too, having a conversation with your coworkers. Talk with the other person, not to the other person. Talk with, not to. Big difference. When you are talking with someone, you're listening to what they have to say, and you're listening to it, not only getting ready to respond, but listening to what they have to say. Focus on behavior and events, not on personalities. A lot of times a personality can get in the way, and we don't want that to happen. We want the conversation to be about whatever the events is or the behavior that is causing problems. That's what you're after. Learn to actively listen. You have to listen in order to respond in the correct manner. Focus on behavior or listen carefully. Identify points of agreement or disagreement. There are agreements and disagreements, but just focus on those things, not on the personality of the person that you're dealing with. Develop a plan to work on each conflict. Take each conflict and break it up to be just the conflict that you're working on. Once again, I keep saying this over and over, but it's so important. Don't depend upon your personalities. Don't talk to the people about their personalities. Follow through with your plan. Once you've made a plan, follow through with it and make sure that things are being done correctly. And you may have other small meetings in between that people will share with you their progress or what your progress is. But you've got to follow through with it, and that will help you build on your success. Learn how to always remain calm. That is so difficult, to remain calm. But a lot of times we'll talk about many different ways that you can go about this, and hopefully it will help you in ways to remain calm. Learn to control your emotions. That's the same thing as remaining calm, only your emotions could be very, very joyous or very, very despondent. And you want to make sure that you're controlling them and keeping track of the conversation. Mood boosters. There are things that you can do for a mood booster that will help you a lot. And there's always multiple sides to every story. You cannot forget that. There's usually 3 sides to every story. Your side, the other side, and the truth. The 3 sides. Who's the boss and the manager and why this matters? This is really important to remember. Who is the boss? Where's your paycheck coming from? That's the person that you've got to be loyal to, is the person that your paycheck is coming from. Your opinion only matters when asked for. If you are asked for your opinion, then give it. Otherwise, people don't care. They don't want to hear it. Especially a boss doesn't want to necessarily hear, may I make a suggestion, every time the boss has something come out of his mouth. Your opinion matters when it is asked for. If the boss says, what do you think about this, John? Then you can talk about what you think about it. Respect your manager's position. A manager didn't get to be manager without a lot of work in between. And that you have to remember that, and you have to respect that position. However he happened to get there, he or she happened to get there, you've got to respect it. And you've at the same time got to respect the owner's investment. The owner is invested in your success and is investing their own hard-earned dollars into the company. That's why it's really important that you respect the owner as the boss and as for what his investment is. Respect the owner's position, but you wouldn't want to undermine the boss or manager with your coworker. You wouldn't want to undermine anybody, because guess what? Gossip can lead to trouble. So if you start talking about your boss behind his back, his or her back, you're definitely it's going to come around. Gossip is gossip, and it goes around, and it's not a good thing, not a good thing at all. Gossip can only lead to trouble. Learn how to have difficult conversations with your boss or your manager. Initiate a conversation. Now, how do you go about initiating a conversation? The best thing that you can do is to, first off, ask for a time that you could have a meeting. Have a meeting together and initiate the conversation by saying, may we have a meeting? Is there a time that we could carve out some time that we can just sit and talk? I have some things that I would like to discuss with you. And then acknowledge there's a problem. Acknowledge what the problem is, and acknowledge that there is indeed a problem. And what is it? How can you dissect the problem down? What is that problem? Just the problem. Forget about the personalities. Just the problem. Difficult conversations in the long run can avoid explosions. If you're not having a good conversation beforehand, little things blow up out of proportion, and they get, so you have that virtual straw that breaks the camel's back. Some little thing happens and it just drives you crazy, drives you right up a wall. And that's when you have an explosive conversation that is exactly what you don't want to have. Difficult conversations make for better communication. Once you've had that difficult conversation, trust me, it's easier to have a conversation the next time. A difficult conversation. Not having difficult conversations can take a small challenge and turn it into a big deal. I'm going to give you an example of a difficult conversation that I had with my wife. And I know that this isn't a work-related conversation, but a difficult conversation nonetheless. I would come home from the office or wherever I was, And when you walked up to our front door, you walked past the living room windows so you could see when you were sitting in the living room who was coming to the front door. Well, I would have my arms full of things and I would get to the front door and I'd see my wife and I would acknowledge her by nodding my head. And then I would get to the front door and I would wrestle around and trying to get the key out of my pocket. It was really difficult to get the key out of my pocket. And I couldn't get the door open. And my wife is sitting in the living room reading a magazine. And I would walk in and I would say to myself, you know, she could get up and open up the door for me. It would make life a lot easier. Well, this went on for a few weeks or more like a few months. And every time it happened, I would kind of swallow it and think about, well, what are you going to do? But then one night sitting at dinner, I had come home that day and the same thing happened. And we were sitting at dinner, everything was calm. And I said, Marty, I have something that I'd like to talk with you about. And she said, okay, what is it? And I said, when you see me come home from the office or the grocery store or wherever I happen to have been, and my arms are full, and I walk past the windows and you're reading a magazine and you see that I am struggling to get my key out of my pocket to get in the house, it would be really nice if you would please just come and open the door for me. And she said, you know, I never even thought about it. I'm so sorry. Well, my wife really is a very considerate person. And I knew that she wasn't doing it on purpose, but had I not discussed it with her, that would have kept up and it would have made me angry and more angry. And pretty soon, little things that could have happened in our relationship could blow up into something that was just astronomical compared to what the problem was, which was not really that big of a problem. Guess what, everybody? My wife opens the door for me when she sees me coming now. And it makes a big difference. Makes a big difference in our relationship. And I thank her. And of course, I take the opportunity to give her a kiss hello. Learn how to have difficult conversations with your coworkers. Once again, you initiate a conversation, acknowledge attitude changes, and acknowledge there is a problem. What is the problem? Figure that out and talk about it. Ask what the problem is with your coworker. Maybe you're having a difficult conversation because your coworker has changed their attitude and you don't know why, and you want to figure that out. You want to figure out why their attitude has changed. And so what you do is you say to the coworker, is there a time that we could sit down and chat? Maybe go have a cup of coffee together and sit down and talk. And ask what the problem is. Just come right out and say it. I noticed that things have been changed. Your attitude has changed towards me. And I'm wondering if it's something that I can change so we can have the relationship that we've always had. Once again, difficult conversations can avoid big explosions in a later time. They make for better communication. Once again, I know it's the same thing that jumps out is that not having that difficult conversation can take a small challenge and turn it into a big deal later with the coworker. So try that rather than gossiping about the coworker, saying, well, Susie doesn't do this or Susie doesn't do that to a coworker. Go ahead and discuss it with Susie. Talk with the other person. Big deal. Ask the person to name a time when it would be convenient to meet. Arrange to meet in a place where you won't be interrupted. That's a big deal. You don't want to be interrupted. And turn off all your mobile devices. It's best if you could step even outside of the office and meet out in front of the office or someplace where you can have no distractions from the workplace itself or from other employees. Big deal about turning off the mobile devices because it's a distraction and you don't want to have that distraction come in right when you're getting ready to make a point. And your phone rings and you're getting ready to make a point and you've lost the whole conversation because of that simple little interruption. Focus on behavior and events, not on personalities. That's another really big thing. You might want to say, when this happens, instead of when you do, like for instance, we'll go back to Susie again. Susie, when you do the shredding of the papers right next to me when I'm on the phone, I can't hear. And it makes me very angry. Instead, you could say, Susie, when this happens that you are using this shredder while I'm on the phone, I'm not able to hear my client. And that's really difficult for me. So would you please be willing to not do that when you see me on the phone? And describe a specific instance or events instead of generalizing. Don't generalize it. Really don't say, you always do that. Or you never ask if I'm on the phone. You don't even look at me to find out if I'm on the phone before you start doing the shredder. It's a good thing if you then listen to what Susie has to say. Listen to what she has to say so you can respond to Susie in the correct manner. Don't be thinking all of the time while Susie is explaining herself. Don't be thinking all of the time, well, what can I answer her with? How can I win this battle? That's not what it's all about. It's not about winning the battle. It's about changing the way things are going on and having it be more congenial for you and Susie to work together in the same work spot. Once again, don't use always or never. It's not a good words to use. Learn to actively listen. When you practice active listening, you make the other person feel heard and valued. What is active listening? It's when you are listening to what a person is saying and you're actively listening and you're not interrupting them. And you may lean forward even and listen. You want to give your full attention to the person that is speaking. not be looking over their shoulder, not be looking all around at something else. Look at the person directly in the eyes. That lets them know that you are really listening. While they are speaking, remain neutral and non-judgmental. You don't want to be judgmental and jump all over them before they even finish their thought. Be patient. Periods of silence are good in a conversation. Sometimes the best thing that happens in a conversation is when no words are spoken, because it gives people a chance to think and to talk later, but to think about what they're going to say. Or if you pause in the conversation, it might mean this is the time that you're allowing the other person to open up even more and say more to you. It's very good practice to follow. Use verbal and nonverbal feedback to show signs of listening. Like, for instance, smiling, eye contact, as I said before, leaning in when somebody is talking to you. Mirror the body language that they are showing to you. If they lean in, it's good for you to lean in. And just follow their lead. Ask questions. A lot of people don't ask questions when they're talking with people instead of to people. Ask questions. That is talking with people. Reflect back what is said. If Susie says, gosh, John, I never realized that you couldn't hear your client. I'm sorry that maybe we could move the paper shredder over to another part of the office, so it's not going to be a problem. And then the problem is solved. You see, I'm using the Susie example, but there's many other examples of things that can happen to you in the office. Reflect back on what is said and say, Susie, do you understand what it is that I'm asking? Ask for clarification. Ask for clarification from Susie. Susie, what did you mean when you said so-and-so? Why was that something? And then at the end of your difficult conversation, summarize the conversation and say something along the line of, okay, Susie, we talked about the fact that the paper shredder was right next to my desk and that it's not a really good position for the paper shredder to be in. So let us do something about that. And we have decided that we are going to move it and move the paper shredder so it doesn't happen. Because I realize that you have to do your job and I have to do mine. But you've gone back and you've summarized everything that has been talked about. Very important that you do this summarization, because when you do that, you've made sure that nothing has been left out, that everything has been said. Listen carefully. If you listen to what the other person is saying, instead of getting ready to react, you will find that you get much more out of the conversation. It's very difficult to just be thinking about what you're going to say next and not really hearing what they're saying, because maybe they're answering your question and you're not even listening enough to be able to get it. Avoid interrupting the other person. I talked about that before. It just shows disrespect when you interrupt somebody and you take away what it is what dignity they have you take it away because you've interrupted them. After the other person finishes speaking, rephrase what was said to make sure you understand it. So, Susie, what you said, or Susie, you say that you didn't realize that it was bothering me and that the paper shredder was right there and you thought that it was the perfect place for it. And so therefore you didn't feel that it was bothering me. Is that correct? Is that what am I hearing you correct? And Susie will say, well, yes, you are. Ask questions to clarify your understanding. Because if you don't talk it through, once you get into the difficult conversation, you've got one shot at this. Do it and do it well, but keep calm while you're doing it. Identify points of agreement and disagreement. Summarize the area of agreement and disagreement. That's a very important thing too. Summarize, you may agree on some parts of it and disagree on other parts of it. Like if you were to say, Susie, perhaps you could shred paper between a certain time of the day, and I will make sure that I'm not on the phone. But Susie says, that doesn't work for me because I've got all the papers on my desk and I need to get them off. I'm making this up, obviously, as I go along. But you want to be careful about summarizing the agreement and the disagreement. Ask the other person if he or she agrees with your assessment, because maybe they don't agree, but you've asked the question and they can then come out and say to you what it is that they're thinking. Modify your assessment until both of you agree on the areas of conflict. That's a big deal. If you know what you're both disagreeing on and not letting it bleed into other things, don't let other things come in and add to it. Another thing, Susie, that I want to bring up is I don't like the way you talk as loudly as you talk in the cubicle next to me. You don't want to go down a litany of lists, a list of things. Help each other through the conversation. Modify your assessment until both of you agree on the areas of the conflict. You might find that once one conflict is taken care of, others will just automatically go away. Develop a plan to work on each conflict. Start with the most important conflict. What is the important conflict? Focus on the future of what's going to happen in the future with the problem with the paper shredder or whatever the case may be. If necessary, set up future meetings and times to continue your discussions. Try and have your discussions on a one-on-one basis so you can speak with each other instead of to each other. It's like the same thing. I know that when I had employees, which I had many of, I never ever said to people that Susie works for me. I always would say Susie works with me. And Susie and I did this project together. If Susie had any part of it. Susie's getting a big run for her money today, but it's good that she is because she's making a good example of everything here. Follow through with your plan. Stick with discussions until you've worked through each area of a conflict. If you've got more than one thing, in a conflict, make sure that you get it all out, but don't make it an attack. You don't want to make an attack on someone. You want to, once again, speak with the person, not to the person. Maintain a collaborative, let's work out a solution attitude. Makes a big difference if you've got that attitude that you are trying to work out a solution together. Makes a really big difference. So maintain that collaborative, let's work out a solution together. And you can even put that into your conversation. What is it that we can do that is going to make it easy for both you and I in the future? That's what you can ask that question, and then listen to what the person has to say to you. Listen. So important. Build on your success. Look for opportunities to point out progress. Okay, if progress is being made and you're talking now with your boss and you see that progress is being made, compliment the other person's insight and achievements. So you might want to say to your boss, do you know, it was wonderful. After we sat down and had our conversation, I noticed that I felt much better and much happier here in my position. And I see that you seem to be happier with the way I'm responding to things that you asked me. So you're complimenting the other person's insights and achievements at the same time as you're taking the time to look for opportunities to take care of the progress. Congratulate each other when you make progress, even if it's just a small step. No matter what it is, it's important. It's leading to success in your problems or your challenges, I should say. Challenges is a much better word than problems, because it denotes, it means basically the same thing. However, it sounds so very, very different. Your hard work will pay off when scheduled discussions eventually give way to ongoing friendly communication. Pretty soon, after you've had a difficult conversation and you've gotten to the bottom of things with people, pretty soon things will get to the point where you can joke and have a good time about it and not let it be a bone of contention. Learn how to always remain calm. This is one thing, the 24-hour rule. It's a big deal. If you receive an email or a text or a phone call, a voicemail or a phone call, and someone has said something to you that is very upsetting, what you want to do is wait 24 hours before you answer the person. It's huge. Your whole idea of what is being said and what is being, what you are saying and how you are reacting will change completely within 24 hours. You might find that this was not as bad as you thought it was, and it just hit you at a wrong time. Sleep on it. It's the best thing that you can possibly do. Then call the person back, or then write that email, or then write that text back to the person. But if something upsets you, you're best to wait 24 hours. It's sometimes very, very difficult to do, but it's an important thing to do. Sort out your feelings before the conversation. When you're going to have a conversation, figure out what it is exactly that you are going to talk about. I find that it's very important to make notes and have notes ready to sort out all your feelings before you go into the conversation. And try not to be angry. That's why, once again, if you use that 24-hour rule, you will find that it's going to be a lot better. You're not going to be nearly as angry or angry at all after 24 hours. It's amazing the difference. Use the term, would you be willing to, instead of take out the trash right now. You might want to say, would you be willing to take out the trash? And the person is more likely to be happy to do whatever it is that you're asking for them to do. So use that term, would you be willing? Another story that I've got for you with would you be willing is I did a lot of traveling when I was in my business of events. And so a lot of times I found that I was bumped on an airplane, or a flight was canceled, or something happened at the airport. And there would be people that would go up to the desk of the person standing behind the desk, and they'd say, I've got to get home, and I don't need this, and I've got a convention that I'm on my way to, and I've got to get there, and you need to do something about this, and this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. What is their reaction going to be? The reaction is going to be obviously to recoil from you. But if you walk up and say, I see that you're having a really bad day, that this is really difficult, would you be willing to look up and see if there is another flight leaving today to go into your destination? Or is there any other way that I could possibly get there? Would you be willing to see if I could through your state and get there? I'm willing to take a plane change if that's what it needs, but I would really like to get to where I need to go. 9 times out of 10, it worked. And I always got where I wanted to go. 9 times out of 10. Another really good thing to do is meditate. It's very difficult to meditate when you're in the middle of a controversy, but it's really good if you can take a few minutes and just go off by yourself and just be quiet and be with your thoughts and only your thoughts and meditate. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like I said before, when you're talking to your boss, if your boss, it's your boss that owns the company. It's your boss that has put all his money into it and has worked very hard to get to the position where he can hire you or whoever. So always put yourself in that person's shoes, your boss's shoes, and say, how would I feel? Would I hire me? Would I want to have me around? That's a good question. Ask yourself that before you have your conversation with your boss. Learn to control your emotions. Experience uncomfortable emotions, but don't stay stuck on them. Go ahead and experience them, but don't stay there. Don't say, I'm mad and I'm not going to put up with it, and stick there. Go into it with a different set of looking at it and say, I understand why I'm upset, but I'm not going to stay stuck in that. Label your emotions. Are you nervous? Do you feel disappointed? Are you sad? Are you hurt? 9 times out of 10, anger is the result of being hurt. So maybe someone has hurt you in a way that they didn't even mean to hurt you, and you've gotten very angry. Labeling how you feel can take a lot of sting out of the emotion. Just label how you feel. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. I'm whatever. And know that in yourself before you go into the conversation. It's really a big thing. Reframe your thoughts. Think more rationally. Very important that you think rationally. Because if you don't, everything's going to get away from you and it's going to be bad. Speak to the person the way you would like to be spoken to. That's a big deal. A lot of people don't do that. Remember, it's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Speak to others the way you would want to be spoken to. And you'll find that you speak a lot different. And focus on the positive things. That's important, that you focus on those things that are positive about a person rather than the negative things. Focus on those and then talk about the negative things. Managing your emotions isn't the same as suppressing them. You're not necessarily suppressing them. You're just managing them. And I don't suggest that you do away with them and ignore them. Ignoring your sadness or pretending you don't feel pain won't make those emotions go away. So acknowledge what you're feeling. And you can say it even in a conversation. Would you be willing to listen to what I have to say? Because when this happens, I feel hurt because I feel as though you don't have any respect for me. And that makes me very sad. And then it goes from there. Your conversation could go from there. Mood boosters. What do? Call a friend to talk about something pleasant, not to continue complaining. You don't want to do that. If somebody says, have you had a good day? And you've had a lousy day, don't go on and on and on about it. People really don't want to know. Most people, when they say, how are you doing? They want to hear, just fine. How are you doing? They don't want to hear the real thing. Another thing that's a great mood booster is to go for a walk. So if you're having a problem at the office, get up and excuse yourself and just take a walk. Take a walk around the property or go take a walk around the block or whatever you want to do. But just get out and take a walk, and that will help your mood up. Meditate for a few minutes if you can. Once again, a lot of people can't meditate, but if you can, meditate for a few minutes. Listen to uplifting music. And when I say uplifting music, everybody has a different idea of what that is. So you want to listen to what is uplifting to you, not to other people. And you have to do it quietly so you're not disturbing other people. Deep breaths, that's a big one. Just, they say, in with the good, out with the bad. And I say that, and I am joking when I say it, if I'm with people, but at the same time, I'm really doing it. And I'm letting that person know how I feel, but in a lighthearted way. Workout or exercise, it's so good for you to work out or exercise. It's so good for you. It really boosts your mood. Dance. Nothing like dancing. Dance like nobody's watching. Just have a good time. Go home, dance around the house, go into the restroom at work and dance if that's what you want to do. Dancing really does help your mood. Any activity that you enjoy doing on a good day, do it. And that'll make you feel better. There are multiple sides to every story. Ask the other person if they see a conflict. Very often, the other person doesn't even see a conflict. And so you're going to be talking to somebody that has no idea what you're even talking about. So ask the other person if they see it. If not, tell them what it is. If they do see it, ask what the conflict is. Just come right out and say it. And then say, how can we solve it? Not what are you going to do to make it better? How can we solve it? Because that's going to make it better in the conversation, because you're taking ownership of the problem as well. It's a big deal. Ask how we can solve it. Communication is the answer to success. Always have strong communication and you will have much success. Thank you very much, everyone, for today. I want you to please go ahead and tell us what you think of today's webinar by clicking the link below and filling out the survey. It really helps us to help you have the best possible experience with us. So please go ahead and fill that out. And once again, I thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you again.